Yes, well, welcome back. First of all, it's great to see faces that were here last year returning. Really good to see you. And then to see fresh faces here for this year is also really good. I'm just going to talk a little bit about why we put this conference on, what the thinking was around do we need another fintech, do we need another payments conference. And really, I think if I can put it in one sentence, it's that intersection you see up there of development and developers and business operations. So it began with a sort of fundamental question for us when we thought about why tickets don't work on stage. The first question was really that we had was, where do we send our own people if we're going to send them to a conference? Like, what do we do for learning? You heard Sean talk a little bit yesterday about, we actually for the first time had some training, some payments training on site this year, which was really good for us. But before we were big enough and able to afford that, we were thinking, where do we send our own people to learn more about payments? And so that was the nucleus of the question, and we didn't really have any good answers. So we thought about our customers and what they're doing. They're designing, as you all know, you're designing really complex payment systems. And then you're deploying those, and then you're maintaining those complex systems. But it's not just that you're doing those three difficult things, you're doing them while growing really quickly. And when we think about growing really quickly, that's often entering new geographies. That can mean launching, evolving new business models. One of the most exciting parts, I think, and one of the things I've learned as we've had customers over the years, is watching them transition their business model, either completely transition it or augment it. Many start off, as sort of a good example was SeatGeek last year, where they're just sending that transaction to somebody else to do, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, maybe it's a better customer experience if we can bulk buy and do it ourselves. To suddenly now they're sort of doing B2B, and they have, you know, big sporting franchises using their ticketing infrastructure to power their own payments. And so every step of the way, we could support them. I'd love to say we had that vision from day one, but it was a little bit of a fluke, and good luck. But you're really changing things up like that and adding new business partners, working with new individuals wanting to send payment data there. So the alternatives, I think you all know that, fintech conferences. Any fintech conference I go to now seems very focused on consumer banking, and we're all looking for the next consumer bank and mobile app. So there wasn't many that really dug in deep into that intersection of operations and development and payments. The other thing, very sort of merchant-focused sales bazaars. I'm sure you've all been to those and experienced those. The bitter irony is we actually just end up talking to each other because very few merchants go, and you're just pitching to service providers to service providers. Money 2020, still feel like that's probably the premier event, but it's very networking driven now. It's very sort of setting up meetings. So when we're looking around and looking at the alternatives, there really wasn't anything great we could see there, or very vendor specific sort of user group conferences. So it was with that in mind that we said, look, let's do a payment conference of our own. That was the nucleus of it. It was really about sort of this next level down. There's very high strategy where the market's going to be in 20 years. There's lots of really sort of good leading, speakers that talk about sort of thought leadership and where payments is going. But whenever we would get into customers and get to that second meeting, it was always this really interesting discussion around sort of in the groups in the room were business operations and developers trying to work out how to make these things grow and scale and support the business requirements. So that's the nucleus of it. We talked a little bit about Spreedly yesterday. Today, very much just talking about general experiences with that from the speakers. And it's a really, hopefully a really good day. I always found it very educational last year. So thanks everybody for making the trek, and I hope you find it really valuable. Thank you.